Marvin Minsky was talking about, that James referred to. The challenge, however, was to take work from 1920 on the process of creativity. And that was said, well, it's got 6 steps. You get interested, you do preparation, you sleep on incubation, like Archimedes, you have illumination, aha, the sun comes up. Then you have validation, verification, check it out, and then you implement it. So it was 6 steps. What I've been working on is mapping those 6 steps to this 2-dimensional Ptolemaic, like before Copernicus, a 2-dimensional plane geometry view of the mind. And I've tried many ways to say, well, does it go around this way? Or I had plan, goals, strategy, structure, implementation, where the 6 steps that I started with, this was step 1, this was step 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That looked like a pretty successful model, and I taught that course to IBM, and we got A+, or in all their beta, in 4 of their beta sites. Well, what I did with that model after recovering from, as I began to recover from West Nile virus, is to use that process to figure out, with whatever I could do, of how to use my iPhone to figure out what was wrong and to talk to Dr. Schiffman, my kids, and Jeanette, and get help. And later now, last year, with successes with 2 other patients, my daughter-in-law, who out there on that terrace, show that terrace, Jen, fell down in December 24th, December 25th, 2014, and really did a job on her knee, and then had a brain aneurysm and hemorrhagic stroke. This was another version of that 5 steps: the plan, the goals, the strategy, and structure, but realizing that each step was a creative problem-solving process. And each of these steps could be mapped to the sequence of preparation in the lower left, incubation in the lower right, illumination, sun coming out in the upper right, and evaluation in the upper left. So I mapped that to each of the steps. And I found that you could also look at this one, at the past being the story, and the current status at this crossroads here would be here, and then the implementation would be the future. So that this direction was sort of figuring out how to add the space-time continuum. Back in April of this year, I said, no, the answer is a cube. The cube is the only way I could show 3 dimensions. And my first approximation back here in April with this Rubik's Cube, I said I want to tie it into plane geometry, solid geometry, Descartes' coordinates, even looking at it in more Newtonian, because I think that all these scientific conceptual frameworks can fit together, and there's no reason not to treat them anything other than metaphors and see where they fit, and if they don't quite fit, make them fit. So this was the creative process. I call that the x-axis going that way, and this was the z-axis. Well, I guess it was the z-axis. I got the axes wrong, but I broke it up into symmetrical 5 steps for each one. And since last April to today, I've been playing with this and trying to look at other dimensions that could help. I found that if you look down in the layers, from the library to the catalog, to the curriculum, to the competencies, to the concept, that if you mapped the issues that were important along what became the y-axis, the humanity axis, you could see that if you were looking at it for an individual, for personal health competencies, and mapped it against this two-dimensional, where this would be the z-axis in my new framework, and this would be the y-axis. I could map 12 dimensions, and from a patient's point of view, let's start over here. The first thing I needed to do, make sure my heart was beating and breathing. I had blood pressure one time of 180/300, and getting dizzy, and the ventilator, and the whole looking and feeling dimension, which the CNAs took care of, and then the speech therapist on the speaking and swallowing, and the eating and drinking is a fundamental thing that supports everything, and then over here on sleeping and resting and awakening and stretching and strengthening, and thinking and loving, and playing and partying, working and learning, place and travel, time and materials, money and power. That there was a broader way of looking at personal health competencies beyond the medical perspective, which was mainly focused over here. 50–60% of the work and the expense was over here. But there are other parts of life, from a patient point of view, that include playing and partying, for God's sake. And and these are part of what makes a life worthwhile. If you take this and look at it going up into a organizational look, and I applied the creative problem-solving process with my company, which was, at that point, had tried many new things, and I was always innovating, but the company wasn't making any money, and I got the wrong people. And I used this model that G. Gordon Bell, who invented the PDP-8 for digital equipment, he had applied this model with my partner, my vice president of marketing, Chuck McVinney, who's the leading proponent in the world of this stuff right now. He lives over nearby. That he had mapped marketing, sales, CEO. These were the issues that you needed to, and he mapped it with a spidergram coming out from the center to the outside, so that if you were at this stage, you could evaluate how you were doing with a spidergram. Go ahead.
Is there a relationship between the three-dimensionality, the five divisions in the cube, the 4 divisions there, and then the 12 hours of the clock?
They all tie together, if I may say it elegantly, and I hope that I'll be able to explain it better with your help. Okay? It turns out that that applying this, going into the hospital, leaving a team in place with a plan that I built, that company now has $1.3 million of cash and receivables and $60,000 of less than 30-day payables, and is not innovating, but is succeeding in doing what it set out to do, and doing it right, and not saying, well, that worked, and dropping it. Now, if you look at that first chart as a cylinder, you can see that these map for organizational the same way that the personal map. They're the same preferences in the brain. And so I did another map, which Ann attended the meeting at the Harvard Faculty Club on January 31st, 2012, just after I'd had a total car crash and removed all my ribs. And the show had to go on then, and it's going on now. So I came up with a map of the same issues around the organizing principle of thinking preferences. And if you have been listening to Gary Johnson, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, it would be useful if the conceptual framework of all the citizens of the country had a framework that was other than alphanumeric, but had a pattern recognition where they could say, well, Hillary, what are you doing on innovation? Well, I know that John Kao, who is the professor at the Harvard Business School, is her advisor on innovation. I think very highly of him, and because of that, I think more highly of her. In terms of globalization, one of my other partners is in, and I'm able to talk to people all over the world every day, in Barcelona, in Germany, in UK. In terms of entrepreneurship, seeing new things, these and plans for education, our politicians, and I listened to a Donald Trump thing for about 40 minutes last night. He didn't cover innovation. He didn't cover science and technology, but he did cover some of these other things. And if they both presented, if we had a common denominator conceptual framework for understanding this two-dimensional framework with the creative process going that way. So this morning I tried to start practicing, and I rewrote it again. Not that we have time to go through all this, but these are the simplified 5 steps that I've been talking about, and they map against the 5 parts of the cube. The next layer down, there are 4, you can explode them. It turns out that if you're in the hospital and you're using shared decision making between the patient and the physician, it's not, Dr. Schiffman, fix me. I'm in bad shape. I've got insurance. Fix me. Or Emiche, who said, I can fix you, but you've got to commit. Until you commit, I can't do it, because this is a team effort. And I'm sure you know the same thing, and I know the same thing. So this gives a way of drilling down to the person's name and their passions, looking at the second step of goals. Where's the pain? What roles do you want in life? What values have you learned from Sunday school or wherever you go? Or what are your priorities? These first 2 rhyme with attitude. And attitude, I hate to use the word, trumps circumstance every time. The attitude is the most important thing. So, without going into that more, any comments or questions before I show you what I came up with in terms of a model?
Is this page mostly around health, or is this around any issue?
What I want the model to do, and I'll try to explain, is that there are 5 steps at the high level of the creative process. The next step, layer down, there are a lot more, and then it drills down in layers. In the way I've looked at, in terms of categorizing humanity from an individual to a social community, to an organizational institution, to a political governmental group, to a whole civilization culture. Each of those are separate but similar. And as I did on the other page, this is the creative process that I've labeled the Atkinson Protocol. Those circles that we did were ways of framing the issues against which to apply a creative process or of any type. How's that, sweetie? Did that help? Not really.
I am definitely further along than I was a half an hour ago.
What is the question, though, that's on your mind?
No, I was wondering what you